Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for being here. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to paint detailed flowers, and we're going to add a blurry background with a nice glow of the sun somewhere in the middle, maybe a little higher. So we're going to do a quick blend. I always like to start from the furthest distance and work up to whatever is closest to me, right? So the background blend will be the first thing we do, and then we're going to detail the sun, add a glow of the sun, right? And then we're gonna add the blurry effect next. Maybe there's some faraway trees or whatever, bushes, flowers, right? Faded. And then we're gonna add the grass and add our quick sketch of our flowers, and then we're gonna detail the flowers, and that'll be the final thing we do. Hopefully you guys can follow along easily and enjoy this lesson. I have been having some questions about where you can get the reference photo or commercial-free lessons, which is why I decided to make a Patreon page where you can get these full-length commercial-free painting lessons, plus reference photos and many other benefits to help you follow along and improve in your painting journey. Your support on Patreon helps me create even more free tutorials here on YouTube, so if you've been enjoying the lessons, this is the best way to help keep them coming. As you might know, I also have my painting mentorship program where I have my most in-depth tutorials. My Patreon page is not a place for new lessons, but mainly to help support these free lessons that I'm creating here on YouTube for those that can't necessarily afford to join the mentorship program. I just want to say thank you for helping me make art education more available here on YouTube. So check out the link in the description to join Patreon or the mentorship for more in-depth lessons. Alright guys, let's go over the materials needed for today. For paint, I'm going to use my 24 set of acrylics, and I'll show you which colors from this set. We're going to use medium yellow, orange, scarlet red, viridian, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and lamb black. And from my 5 set of acrylics, I'm going to use titanium white. For brushes, I'm going to use 2 of my M1 blending brushes. One, I like to dab in the water and lay all my acrylic paint quickly with water and paint, and I'll show you exactly how I do this. And then the second blending brush, I like to work dry to blend everything in. I'm going to use my 4-piece brush set right here, and I will show you what's inside. We have the number 8 and number 4 brushes. They're the same thing, just the size smaller. They're like filbert style synthetic hair. I use these a lot for my paintings. And then also we have a 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this today, but if I will show you. And a 0 detail brush for the little details. We need palette, and I'm going to use my palette paper here. I like this because it comes in 40 sheets. Basically, once I'm done mixing all my colors on the palette, I don't need to wash it over the sink. I just tear a sheet off. It just saves a lot of time. So I love using this. We're also going to need a palette knife to mix your paint, a jar of water, somewhere next to your canvas where it's going to be easy access, some paper towels to dab some of your brushes onto and or wipe your palette knife, and finally canvas, right? And you can use any size canvas you want. I am going to paint on a 14 by 14 inch studio canvas. I bought it straight from the store, and as you could see, it already has gesso on it, and I don't need to prime it or do anything to it. The only thing I did to prepare this canvas was quickly add a glaze of water everywhere and let it naturally dry. So what that does is it just stretches out the loose ends, if it has any, right? It just makes the canvas nice and firm. By the way, if you're interested in my brushes or paints, check out the link down below or visit colorbyfelix.com. But I always say this, you can use what you got available. These lessons are meant for you to catch certain techniques. Hopefully it can help in your artwork, because the only way you can improve and get better is by painting. This is supposed to be relaxing and fun, and I hope you guys can enjoy the process and not worry about trying to make it perfect or have it look exactly like mine. All right, because even if I were to copy myself again, it's going to turn out different. It's not going to look the same. And I actually have done paintings that I repeated, and it still turned out way different. So don't worry about trying to make it look exactly like mine. Yours could be totally different because you might have a different style, and that's okay. And lastly, I'd like to remind you guys, take breaks. Don't worry about trying to get it all done in one setting, because that could be overwhelming and you can get super exhausted, right? Work in sections, that's how I like to do it. I mix a few colors, and then once I'm done with that section or that part, I then can choose to either continue or take a break, right? And that's how I enjoy it. I don't try to get everything done in one day. All right, guys, let's get to mixing and let's have fun. All right, let's start with titanium white. And the goal is to create about 4 to 5 colors. And we want to create from lightest to darkest. Basically, we want to create a sunset setting look. So we want to create that nice bright glow going into like the blues, right? So that's the goal. And white helps to lighten the color and dull the, the vibrancy a bit from the paint straight out of the tube. That's why I like to use white a lot. Actually, white is the most I use in every painting, and also a little bit of black to darken a shade. So let's start with about, since my canvas isn't too big, I'm gonna go about a thumb, maybe a thumb and a half amount of paint. Okay, right there on the first one. And then right next to that one, I'm gonna add another thumb, maybe, yeah, about the same amount. And then each time go a little less. So this time I'm adding a little less than a thumb amount right here. And then a little bit less, half a thumb amount. Okay. And then finally a small touch on the last one. Okay. Always close your paint lid so that paint won't dry out. Next, let's quickly pick up our medium yellow. Add a small amount here, not a lot, small amount like this. Okay. And maybe on this one. And that's it. Very small. And next we're going to pick up orange, and we're going to add a little bit of orange to this first one and a little bit to this second one. Maybe just a little bit more, slightly more. But you can see I'm not adding a lot of color. If I need to, I can always add more. Next, we're going to pick up scarlet red, and we're going to add a little bit to this one. Very small amount, okay? And a little bit to the third one. And then we're going to pick up cerulean blue and add it to the third one, small amount, okay? And then small amount to the fourth one. Maybe a little bit more to this one. Here's a closer look. So you could see small amount of cerulean blue, a little bit more than this one. And then ultramarine blue, let's add a touch right on this one and then more on this one. And actually I decided to add a little more red because I want it to be more leaning towards the pink. So I want to add a little more red to this one. All right, let's just mix and see what we get. And if I need to add more, and I will. So palette knife, and I'm going to start from the lightest color. So I'm going to try my best to blend everything in. And this is a nice orangey yellow glow. Nice first color. I like it. I don't need to do anything to it. And this is like the base of our background. So, we're going to add a little bit more detail to our sun and things like that. It'll be fun. But this is good. Basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of like chopping vegetables, right? Mix it and then create a little, put it all together like this. And then let's go on to the next one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly mix all these colors, right, to save you guys some time. And I will show you what I get. So as I was mixing between these two colors, you could see that this one is a big jump. It's going into a darker tone real quickly. So I don't really like that. I want to make sure the transition is smoother to the sky. So the way to fix that is by adding a little bit more titanium white, and that'll lighten it a bit and make it softer. So a little more white, and quickly mix everything like this. Okay, that's much better. Maybe you can't see it in the video, but in person it really is much better. Makes it a little brighter. All right, so I'm going to take part of this color, mix it in with this because we're going to blend these colors anyway in the sky. So I'm not worried about cleaning my palette knife. Actually, sometimes after I mix, sometimes I take a little part from each and move it to the next, color, so that it'll blend in all like create more of a smoother transitions to the next color, because that's what we'll do. Like I said, on the canvas, we're going to be adding the paint, and you'll see, and we're going to be blending everything. And last is this color. It's going to be a little more bluish. Let's add a little more, actually, ultramarine blue. A little more ultramarine blue to this one. Just a little bit more. I want it to be a little darker than this one. So there you go. All right, once you're done mixing, what I like to do is dab my palette knife in the water jar real quick like this, and then pick up one of my paper towels to clean it out. And now when I need to mix more, it's nice and clean. All right, so this is the colors I have, right? From like this yellow, orange, going into this pink to the blue. That is the goal. If you get something similar, you're good to go, okay? It does not have to look exactly like mine. All right, so next we're gonna pick up one of the M1 blending brushes, and we're gonna dab it all the way in the water, okay? All the way, and then squeeze part of it out, okay? Make sure I'm not squeezing too hard, but I still have some water in there, but not a lot, okay? We don't want like too much water, but we do want a little bit in there, and water helps keep acrylic stay wet longer. Once I'm done adding all my acrylics onto the canvas, then I can blend. It won't dry so fast. Okay, so with a little bit of water in the first color, right, we're gonna pick up our first color real quick like this, right? And we're gonna have the sun somewhere in the middle right here. So I'm gonna just randomly, and I'm gonna go low, right? But obviously we're gonna cover part of the, come back and add more details right here. But I'm just gonna add that brightest area right in here. Dab my brush lightly in the water, just the tip, right? And then pick up a little more. And if you see bubbles, that's good. But if you see water dripping, that means you have too much water, and you should pick up more paint like this and kind of equalize it by blending, okay? So dab lightly in the water, pick up the orange, next color, go right next to this one. All right, I'm gonna leave that glow of the yellow in the middle, but I'm gonna go around and add that orange next. Orange color. Okay. And then next, I'm gonna pick up this pink. It's gonna start to transition pretty quickly into the blues in just a little bit. So a little more of this pink. Okay. Let's add it right in here. All right, dab my brush slightly in the water. Take more of this pink, maybe mix it with this blue, because we're transitioning to the blues. Okay. All right, dab lightly my brush in the water, pick up the last brightest color, and we're gonna cover that real quick, swirl it, and make sure to cover all the canvas nicely. Okay, a little bit here, and right here. Okay. I'm not worried about blending it yet. I'm just creating that quick transition, adding my paint. And now I'm going to set my blending brush in the water jar and pick up my dry blending brush, and quickly, starting from the middle, gently with a dry brush, swirl, and work your way upwards from lightest to darkest. Take away all the brush strokes. You see how nice that looks? That nice glow, right? That's what we want. I want to create that nice glow and take away all the brush strokes like this. Okay. And that's it. So it's super easy and fast. Once you catch the technique, it's a lot of fun. You could do really cool blends with acrylics and really fast too. Okay, so I'm not bringing the dark colors down. I'm just gently swirling and working around, pulling the paint upwards. And there you go. A nice quick blend. All right, so now I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna clean my blending brushes so they won't sit in the water too long. And acrylics dry between 20 to 30 minutes, maybe faster, you know. And basically, before applying more layers, you wanna make sure your background is dry because you don't wanna peel paint off, right? So it's actually better that it dries. So that's what I'm gonna do. And also, you see I have paint left here, right? I'm not gonna let this go to waste. What I'm gonna do actually, just for this one, since I don't really need to because I like my background, but I don't want to let the paint go to waste. So what I'm gonna do is actually make another blend real quick. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then after it dries, I'm gonna quickly to speed up the process. I'm gonna use a hair dryer so that my paint won't dry here, and then I'm gonna do the same process. Basically, just use up all the paint, do the same process, create a nice solid smooth blend of the background, right? And you can add as many layers as you want because acrylics is all about layering. So I'm gonna do that so that I won't let this paint go to waste. And then we can continue to the next part. And the next part will be adding the sunlight, a nice glow of sunlight, and create a transition, right? We're not gonna add any clouds. I like the background as it is. We're just gonna work on creating the sun and that nice glow around it. Okay, I got a new water and I cleaned my blending brushes. My background is dry, and I'm gonna put my number 8 and number 4 brushes in the water so you can soak up the water, because when you let it sit for about a couple minutes, 3-4 minutes, your brushes become soft. And when you work with a damp brush, it blends in, acrylic spread nicely with a little bit of water. It just makes it a little more smoother. So we're gonna let that sit there for a bit while we mix our next colors. So I did go lower, you could see I went like halfway, but I'm gonna add the sun higher. I wanna make it a little higher. I don't want the landscape to be straight in the middle. I think the composition will look better if it's a little higher. So I'm gonna add the sun somewhere in the middle. I'm gonna eyeball it somewhere up here, and we're gonna create a little glow, yellow and glow effect around it. And then we're gonna start to add some blurry, far away, maybe trees and grass and things like that. So this is what I added. Straight out of the tube, titanium white, and then a little bit of white, maybe half a thumb of white here, and then medium yellow. And then a little bit less white, the same amount of medium yellow, and a touch of orange. And then a little bit of white and a little more orange here. And then a thumb amount of white, cerulean blue, and then white here, about the same amount, cerulean blue about the same amount, and viridian. And then viridian and a touch of scarlet red straight out of the tube. I want to mix these colors, and I'll show you what I get. And if I need to add more, I will show you as we go. As I was mixing for the sun, right, the sun colors, I added a little bit of scarlet red to this one as well. I want to make it a little more on a darker side. I also decided to add more cerulean blue and a touch of lamp black. I want to make it a little more, I don't want to make the colors too vibrant and too bright. So that's why white and a little bit of black, it kind of dulls out a little bit of the color. And I want to make it a little darker. So I added a little more, I squeezed out a little more cerulean blue and a touch of lamp black right here, and a touch of lamp black right there as well, okay? So I want to mix these and continue. And the last color I'm going to add is a thumb amount of white and a touch of scarlet red, very small amount, and then a little less white and more scarlet red right here. And these are the colors I got. So this is for the sun. We're going to work on the sun, right? These colors. And then these are going to be our far away like trees and blurry, some blurry flowers in the back, right? We're going to start adding some detail right about here, going a little bit down. And then we'll continue adding more detail later. But that is the plan. So I'm going to take out my brushes and put them down. And pick up my number 4 brush. And we're going to add the sunlight somewhere in the middle, but in the middle of the painting, but on top a little higher. So we're probably going to add it right in here somewhere, okay? So a lot of this is going to be covered because we want our horizontal line to be somewhere right in here. So with a little bit of water, and I'm going to tap it on the paper towel so it could be nice and soft. We're going to start to first sketch out the sun with white and a little bit of water. With just white. And we're going to add our sunlight right about in here. And you can make it as big as you want, totally up to you. Make it like okay. And water helps, you could see it helps run smooth on the canvas. And try to make it as circular as you can. This is our first kind of layer. And I'm looking at it, I want to make sure it's centered and I'm happy with how it's looking. I think I'm going to make it a little bigger to the right, just a little bit. I'm going to make it slightly bigger to the right. Okay, so while my first layer is drying, right, I want to make sure it dries because that's how you create a nice solid bright color. You don't want any transparency. And right now there's transparency because it's a thin layer, especially if it has a little bit of water, right? So I'm gonna let this dry and add another layer and make it more cleaner. But first, before, while this is drying, let's continue kind of sketching out our next like trees and far away flowers and things like that. So like a blurry effect, right? So let's start with, next to this, we're gonna add a little bit of, let's add a little bit of this orange, right? A little bit of this orange. I know it might look a little bit of, bright at first, but we're going to blend everything in. So next to the sun, I'm going to add my dark shadows first. So right here, next to the sun, I'm going to add a little more of this color. There's going to be some flowers here, so it's going to be covered, but I want this glow, orangey glow, right over here. And as I go down, we'll let this fade out to a lighter orange. So lighter orange, and I have a little bit of water in my brush so it can run smooth, right? And I'm blending it with that darker orange. And as I go up, right, I'm going to dab my brush slightly in the water, tap it on the paper towel. Let's use yellow, bright yellow. And I'm using the corner of my brush and swirling like I do with the blending brushes. And you can see I'm barely pressing and carrying the paint around with a little bit of paint and water, and it blends in smooth to my background. That is the goal. Okay, we're going to go over the sun again, but we're kind of adding another layer here. And as you go up, you can use a little bit of white. You can blend it in right there. Because we want to create that glow effect from the sunlight, right? We don't want it to look flat. So a little bit of yellow, right? And right around the sun, we're going to create that nice yellow glow. Swirl and work your way outwards. Dab my brush slightly in the water. Use a little more yellow. Let's continue adding that bright yellow around the sun. And gently swirl and kind of blend it out to the background colors we added. And that's how you create glow. All right, you can start to see the bright sun, right, glowing. We're gonna continue. Let's go back to this orange. Let's go around here. Okay, and then go back to this darkest orange. And as you go down, let's mix it with the pink, maybe a little bit of this darker pink. Right here, we want to create some variety. To mix it with the light. And you can see that it is still transparent and rough because this is our first layer. So now we can use the light pink. This is our first layer, so it is going to look a little more rough. Let's use a little bit of the hot, darker pink and add it a little bit in this orange right here. Okay, and a little bit of orange, and blend it in here a little bit. And in here, I'm gonna kind of fade it out because there's gonna be a flower, like I said, coming around here, but I wanna add a little bit of that orange glow still coming out from this side, right? There's gonna be a flower here, so it's gonna be covering part of that. So I dab my brush in water and tap it on the paper towel to take away some paint. And with just, let's use a little bit of this pink and maybe a touch of orange and pink so that we can create a more of a smoother transition to the background colors. Okay. Let's add a little bit of touch of orange and this pink. As we go down here, I'm gonna slowly transition to the, let's actually add the light, the blue, this one right here. I know it's maybe confusing right now, but bear with me. It's all gonna come together nicely. And you'll see what all this will look like once we start adding more and more layers. Let's use a little bit of pink, trying to create a variety of different shades and colors. Maybe a little more pink. Let's go into a darker green. And I know I'm going all over the place right now with colors, but you'll see this will make sense in a little bit. This will create, you know, blurry effect. And then once we start to add detailed flowers, they're going to be super detailed, you know, and sharp. It's going to look really nice. It's going to give a nice depth. But so there's no right way of adding your shadows. You can add the pinks here, the green, you know. But the technique here I'm showing you, as the first layer, you can see it's rough. We're going to go over it again and really make it soft. We're getting a quick sketch down first. So I dab my brush in water, and I'm going to continue. Let's continue with the blue, and let's add that blue on top. Skip some areas. And then as I go out, I'm going to go to the green. Darker green. Use a little bit of blue. Okay, and I'm going to use a little bit of the, let's use this pink and a touch of orange and right around the colors we just added. I want to blend it out a little bit, make it a little softer so it can, you know, be a softer transition to the background and not sharp. Trying to take away all the brush strokes, make it look cleaner. Use a little bit of pink in the corner of my brush. Gently press and swirl and kind of blend those in. Okay, let's continue. Let's use a little bit of this orange, maybe light orange. Mix it in here. Dab lightly my brush in water, use pink. Okay, I'm gonna continue a little, adding a rough sketch on this side as well. Let's use this green and let's add maybe these are little faraway flowers. Blurry flowers. Let's use the darker green. Some pink in between, why not? Maybe a little blue actually. Add a little bit of this blue. Pink again, back and forth. Light pink. Maybe add a little bit of white. I know it's random right now, but you'll see. It's all gonna come together nicely. Now that I'm actually covering more of a bigger space, let's quickly pick up number 8 brush. Same thing, just a little bigger. It'll help, you know, cover bigger areas. So let's add a little bit of this green in here, right? Maybe a little bit going down. A little bit of pink. Blue. Okay, a little more pink. And blue. Like I said, there's going to be a flower here, but just in case, I'm going to cover gently. Another layer of pink. Randomly add it right there. And then maybe hot pink, the darker pink. And let's add a little bit of white. Maybe a little bit of orange. A little bit of white in here. Pink. Okay, let's continue. I know it looks rough, but this is going to be very important for us because when we go into the second layer, we're going to make things smoother and cleaner, and things are going to really come to life. Okay, so let's continue. Let's add a little bit of orange. Why not? Maybe there's a couple bright orange spots in here. A little bit of pink, coming back to the pink. Okay, a little bit of blue. Randomly. A little bit of orange on this side, and yellow. Some white. Why not? Okay, so this is totally up to you, the colors you add. And as you go lower, obviously it's going to get a little darker. But so I'm using this kind of Viridian color. And a little darker pink. Okay. A little darker pink in here. And Viridian. Maybe a little bit of blue. A little bit of white between the blues and the pinks. And we're going to add, flowers over it. So a lot of this is going to be covered. So it looks messy right now, but you'll see. It's always looking messy in the beginning stages. A little bit of pink and Viridian. So now I'm going to cover most of this with Viridian. Maybe a lighter Viridian. We just want to cover the canvas and create more of a, like a lighter area here and then going into darker colors in here. So Viridian, darker Viridian color we have mixed. Let's add that right here. And then mix it maybe with the blue, why not? Let's use a little bit of pink in here. Back to the Viridian, blue. And we cover all the canvas, creating kind of a bland, rough looking blend, right? All right. So while this dries, I'm going to come back to detailing now the second layer of our sun. All right, with my number 4 and white again, I had to add a little more white. I was running low. I'm going to repeat the process. And you see the second layer, you could see it's making my sun brighter. That's what we want. So I'm going to add the second layer. And for once this dries, I'm going to add one more layer to create a solid so that my sun can be very bright. I'm going to add a very bright layer over it. But before I do, we're going to continue kind of going around our sun like we did and making it a little more, you know, doing the same thing, making it glow. While it dries, I'm going to use this light yellow, okay, and go around the sun. Lightly dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, use a little bit of white and yellow with water. And I'm pressing as I go up, swirling and pressing, carrying the paint outwards, creating that glow. Dab my brush lightly in the water, and with my damp brush, I'm going to continue blending everything out so that it can create a smooth transition and glow. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to work on this area here. Now add a little bit of this orange. I'll make it softer, right? I'm going to make things softer now with the second layer. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my orange. And with the orange, you could see, maybe take a little bit of this, you could see it's creating, it's taking away making it look softer, right? That's the goal. Blend it out like this. There you go. You could see that beautiful transition, right? That's because we added that second. And you can totally add the third layer, doing the same thing basically as what we're doing right now, even make it even more smoother, right? So it's totally up to you how much layers you want to add. And don't worry about having your paint drying out, because you can mix similar colors. They don't have to look exactly like it, right? You can mix similar colors and do the same thing over the top. I used to worry in the past when I was, beginning to paint, I used to worry about like, oh man, my paint is drying. If I need to mix more, what if I want to paint in a few days? I won't get the same colors. It's actually better that you don't get the same colors, in my opinion. I think it's better to have, similar shades that creates nice, like layers of colors, and it will, look really good once you add more and more layers over it. So with a damp brush and, more paint, let's continue here. We're gonna add orange right in here, and a little bit of this pink, pink on the bottom. Make it small, and you could see it's now a lot more solid. Okay, and I'm gonna stop there. I don't want to go too, too orange, too dark there. I just want a little bit of that. I'm gonna take the lighter orange and go around the edges while the paint is still wet and kind of swirl. It's okay if you go over the top like this. And then in here, I'm gonna dab my brush slightly in the water, use maybe a little bit of white, just the white by itself. Swirl gently. Use the edge, and then you see how the paint is still wet, so it's like creating that smooth glow transition, right? And that's the goal. Just to slowly work, not rush, and work around. And your shapes could be totally different. That's totally fine. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, as long as it's something, similar like this, you can have a lot of fun creating your darks and lights anywhere you want. So now we'll continue. So I'm kind of getting carried away by working on this blurry effect in the back, but I want to finish my sun. So now that the background is dry, I'm gonna clean my brush completely and tap it on the paper towel and add one more layer of titanium white over the sun, and this will make it super bright. So just the white right here over the top like this as the final layer. Okay, so while this dries, another thing I want to do, I'm going to dab my brush slightly in the water, tap it on the paper towel, and try to blend that out, that white with water, to create a more of a softer edge. Okay, and also what you can do to make your sun even sharper is use your detail brush and swirl it with, dab it in the water, swirl it, right? And go over and make it even cleaner and sharper. Go around the edges. So that's what I'm going to do with a little bit of water and white straight out of the tube. I'm gonna go over my sun and make it sharp. All right, you could see I spent a little bit of time adding that glow around the sun until I was happy with it. I also added straight from the tube medium yellow just around the edges of my sun so that it can really make it bright and glow, right? So I'll be done with the sun, and now the next thing is to continue with the second layer of my blurry effect of the background right here, right? So my paint dried right here. So I'm going to mix similar colors again. But before I do that, we're going to obviously have, like I said, some flowers, bigger ones here. I'm going to quickly sketch out with an acrylic marker. I'm going to quickly sketch out my flowers, how I want them to look. Sometimes I like to paint straight on, right? Actually, a lot of times I do. Other times, if I want the placement to be perfectly placed, I'll sketch it out and make sure I like the size and the placement of them. Right? There's no right or wrong. Your placement can be different, but I'm going to quickly do that and show you what I get before we continue with the background. And this is just to know where they'll be at, so that we won't spend time, adding all the details if the flower is going to be on top. You know what I mean? Okay, it's a new day. You could see I quickly sketched out my flowers, basically where I want the placement to be, and I might even add more around. But the main ones I added, you could see I covered the background, a lot of it, because I wanted it to be close to the sun. So that is why I wanted to kind of sketch my flowers, because if I spend too much time covering and then I realize when I add the flowers on top, I'm going to cover a big part of it out, it's wasted space. So that is why I quickly sketched that out just to get an idea. And we're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. But the next step is to continue with the background before we work on these flowers. So I'm going to mix the same colors, right, like we did with the background. Pretty close. Doesn't have to look exactly, but pretty close. And I'll show you what I got. So again, the same thing, titanium white straight out of the tube, and then a thumb amount of white, medium yellow, a little bit less white, medium yellow, and orange, and then less white, more orange, and scarlet red. Okay, and then we got titanium white, cerulean blue, and viridian, and then a little bit less white, a little bit of cerulean blue, more viridian, and a touch of lamp black. And then very small amount of white, viridian, and lamp black, a little more here. And then white and scarlet red, and then less white and a little more scarlet red here. And here you go. So something like this and you'll be good to go. We got the light yellow going into this darker orange. For this area here, we might use more of the colors as we go lower here. And then these colors right here, this kind of cerulean blue going into this green, viridian, darker green for the, the dark shadows and the lighter kind of colors right here and on the bottom. And then we got the light pink and dark pink for the darker shadows and light pink. So this is going to be, again, we're going to add another layer and make it a little more blurry, more smoother, so it won't look as rough for the background. And then after we do that, that's what we'll work on the next part. And then after that, we'll sketch out our flowers as the first base of each flower. And then once we have that, we can start to add a little more details. So let's continue with number 4, brush. Dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel so it could be damp. And we're gonna continue using the same technique to swirl and blend and use the colors to create smooth transitions from each color. All right, so let's continue from this area, moving this way. So I'm gonna pick up, let's use this orange, maybe mix it with a darker orange, get an in-between color and add it next to this color. Okay, that's a little too orange, that's okay. So what we're gonna do actually is Let's use a little bit of pink. A little bit of pink. There you go. Okay, let's use a little bit of a darker pink color and add one right in here like this. Darker tone. I'm using the corner of my brush and swirling. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to the light pink and around the edges here. Dab my brush lightly in the water and tap it on the paper towel. Let's use a little bit of blue. I'm playing with color a lot here, but that's what it actually, let's use the radiant green, the green. Okay, there you go. And dab my brush lightly in the water. Let's use this pink, maybe a little bit of orange, and mix it on top here so it could be a little softer. We can go back to the darker pink and gently press and blend. See how nicely that is? That works. We can go back to the orange a little bit. Add a little bit of orange right in here. And a little more pink. It doesn't really matter much of the shape, as long as they look blurry. We can't really tell what they are. Lightly dab my brush in the water, use a little bit of this pink. Right in the middle, I want to make this a little lighter here. Orange. A little bit of, you could see I'm using small amount of paint, more water, and around the edges. Okay, so let's continue with this green. Let's use the darker green. Okay, and let's use the darker green in here as well. Lightly dab my brush in water, use the next green color, maybe a little darker green here. Now we can use a little more blue. Kind of blend those in together. Maybe a little pink with green, why not? Lightly dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, use this blue. Maybe use a little bit of pink and orange. Lightly dab my brush in water. Let's use more blue. Trying to create smooth transitions between each color. Let's use a little bit of pink right in here. I want to create a variety of colors so that it will look nice and blurry and interesting. This is fun. Take your time, spend time on, creating your colors and making it as smooth as you want and anywhere you want, right? As long as it's balanced. Let's add a little bit of pink in here. And then more blue. With green. Maybe some orange inside right here. Why not? A little bit of this color. Try to make it as soft as you can. And then back to the darkest green color. It's a lot of back and forth, but little by little it gets done. That's why I'm not in a rush. A little more of that green. I want to make it a little darker in the middle. Lightly dab my brush in water. Use a little bit of this darker pink. It's dark. Let's darken it right here. And use the lighter pink. Try to make it a little softer. There you go. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of this orange. Why not? With pink, dark pink. A little bit of light orange. And then blue. Lightly dab my brush in water. Let's use pink. Okay, so basically you could start to see that I'm creating these smooth, blends going back and forth with each color, trying to make it as clean as possible. Here I'm going to make it a little softer. And it's a lot of back and forth, but little by little, like I said, you're going to get more and more parts done. So I'm going to work on this, doing the same thing, going on the bottom here, just following the colors. Like for example, if I have like the pink and blues here, I'm going to basically do that. Like it doesn't really matter. It could be any color you think would look good. So like the blue in here, as long as it's nice transitions. So spend some time doing that, maybe a little bit of orange. And don't rush it. Just go back and forth, maybe a little yellow in here. So basically that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on trying to make it just softer. Okay. I'll work on this whole area and I'll show you what I get. But basically the technique is the same thing. So I'll play with these colors and work on making these soft. And then for this area right here, these are like blurry flowers. I'm just gonna, for example, I'll show you. For example, let's use light pink. The goal is to make it more softer. So light pink around the edges roughly, because these are not gonna be super detailed. And then go back to this darker pink, right? And then maybe dab my brush slightly in the water. Let's use a little bit more light pink. It's a lot of back and forth, but you could start to see that it's more softer looking. And that is the goal. Basically, that's what I'll do with these. I'm gonna make it a little softer around the edges and, you know, take away the sharpness and go over and add another layer, kind of like what we did here, okay? All right, you could see I spent some time adding a little bit of more colors here, blended colors, and there's no right or wrong which color you decide to add. As long as you try to create that smooth transition between each color, you're good to go. So I had a lot of fun working here. I also went over this like I showed you and also added a little blurry kind of, you know, little stem on these flowers, but they're still blurry. We don't want them to be detailed. We're going to make these ones pop, right? These backgrounds, we want it to look a little more blurry. So let's continue. I'm gonna switch to my number 8 brush because we're gonna add a quick, you know, going over this area, making a little bit of a bigger transitions. So with pink, let's add a little bit of pink randomly in here, right? Glaze it over, and then you can go to the green, mix it all in. Right, and then let's add pink, you know, right here. And here you don't need to make it, as you go closer, it doesn't have to be as smooth as the background. You can make it less, you know, less smooth. So we're just going over again the colors we added. Let's go add green. Trying to go over my sketch, but even if I do go a little bit, that's okay. Let's add a little bit of blue. Maybe a little bit of orange, why not? Okay. Let's add a little more of this darker green right here. And glaze right in here. And let's add a little bit more pink in this area, mixed with green. And darker green. A little more pink, back and forth with these colors. Let's add blue. And green. You could see there's no, you know, There's no exact path. I'm just trying to create variety, because when we add our details of the flowers, this background is really going to help our flowers stand out. So add a little more green on this side. Darker green. And maybe pink. Let's add a little bit of blue. Okay, so it's a lot of back and forth. Let's add light pink right in here. Why not? I'm going to dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, and we can create some blurry flowers, you know, like for example this one, right? Let's add a little bit of this orange right in the middle, like this. Maybe a little bit of this pink right here, maybe one in here. Okay, maybe, you know, we're gonna have a blurry flower in here, right? You know, once things get closer to us, they become a little more vibrant. That's why we want to make these stand out. And let's go ahead and add white, because we want to create a little bit of different variety of flowers and colors, and then randomly just go over like this. Add that glaze of white, and then maybe use a little bit of orange, why not, to this one. Maybe add light pink to change it up a bit. Maybe here, let's add hot pink. A little bit lighter pink right here. Orange. Right? White. I'm gonna add another glaze on this flower. And these are still blurry, but they kind of, you start to see it a little more clear. Right? So I'm gonna clean my brush and use a little bit of this pink. Kind of pull the paint outwards gently. Make it look a little softer. Let's add a little bit of the darker pink in here. Okay, a little more orange. Maybe even a little bit of light yellow. Light yellow on top, like this. Okay. Let's add a little bit of light pink to this one. Okay, maybe a little bit of white. Okay, and then let's add dark pink right on the bottom here. And blend those out. Use a little bit of this green, darker green. Okay, let's continue covering, making soft transitions. This area, I want to make it a little darker. Let's use the dark green. Let's make these flowers stand out a little bit more. So I'm gonna add a little bit of this dark green. Okay, and so like the way I make them soft, right, is I quickly add a glaze, right? You could still see brush strokes here. If I keep adding to it, it's not really gonna like cover it nicely. So let it dry a little bit. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then when I come back to the add a second layer, similar colors, then it's gonna blend in nicely. So while this is kind of drying, I'm gonna quickly, that's why I move around a lot, because I don't work on one area specifically. I actually prefer it dries, and then when I come back, it's easier to fill in and take away all the brush strokes and blend. So while this part is drying, I'm gonna add a little bit of, different, maybe a little bit of blue, why not? A little bit of different colors here. See, this is rough too. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of maybe green right in here. Okay, and now it's pretty much dry, so then I go back and use pretty much similar colors, and you see now that it's dry, it creates more of a solid look. So I'm going to add that right there, and then I'm going to add, let's add a little bit of pink, maybe mixed with green right here, trying to create a softer transition. So I swirl and blend those in quickly. And right here, this is dry, and now we can come back to a similar color and fill it in like this. And now it's covering, taking away all the brush strokes and making it look softer. Maybe a little pink to create a soft transition between those colors. And I'm letting the shapes naturally happen. I don't really have a specific plan, right? So that's how you work with acrylics. Now you can come back and add another layer if you really wanted to make it even more smoother, So like right here, I can, now that that area is dry, I'm gonna dab it in my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel, and I'm gonna use a little bit of these colors here and go around. And you see how it blends in nicely with the second layer. Makes it smoother, takes away the sharpness of the brush strokes and things like that. So I'm going to continue, working, adding my kind of blurry flowers, you start to see some flowers more detailed than the further away ones, right? And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go over this now that this is dry, right? I'm gonna go over it real quick, maybe a little bit yellow. And you can play with colors, as long as you have, you can create a transition between the dark, the background. And that's why I added this dark, because I want these flowers to kind of pop. So if I'm adding them light colors, then it'll look a little more detailed. So a little white. And go over gently. Take away the brush strokes, maybe add a little bit of orange. Go around the edges gently. Okay. Let's add a little bit of white and orange. Go over this flower. You see the second layer makes it look more solid. A little bit of a darker pink here to create variety. Okay, and a little bit more yellow to this one. I want it to stand out against that green that we just added. I'm going to add the red more on this, the pink more here. Okay, dab my brush in the water. Let's use a little bit of this green and orange and add it right in the middle, or right there in the middle, so it could be a little darker. And now you could use your detail brush to kind of clean out the edges. For example, now that I got kind of the quick sketch down, I'm going to make certain areas softer with water and a little bit of white and maybe this yellow. We're going to go over and take away those sharp edges. Kind of blend it a little bit, and don't make them too sharp because we want these flowers to stand out. We still want it kind of blurry, right? So more water, less paint. And with water and a little bit of paint, almost like watercolor, just make the edges softer so you can transition to those flowers like this. Real quick. Okay, and same thing here. I'm going to do that as well. Make it a little softer. And this is up to you how much detail you want to add. You could totally leave it as it is if you want, but I like to take my time and see what I can, create. Something interesting, something fun. I like to add little details. I think that's one of my favorite parts about painting, is spending time on the little parts. Now, once you have like the shapes of your composition down, you just spend time on every little part. And I think that's my favorite part of the painting. So, because all these little details really will make your painting, pop. So now a little bit of this pink, darker pink, and I'm going to add that in here. A little bit of that darker pink on this side. More water. Right? Have my brush slightly in the water. Use a little more pink. Gently add a glaze separation, maybe in here as well. With the pink, let's add a little bit of separation. And down my brush in the water, use a little bit of lighter pink. Maybe let's use some yellow, make it brighter in the middle. Dab it in the water. Make it a little brighter. So I'm gonna tap it on the paper towel to clean out a little bit of paint, and around the edges just swirl it gently and blend it out. And that will create a nice transition. Okay, and for this one, let's add white. And do the same thing, but add white. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit more shadow right in here with the pink and water. Make it a little more detailed. Like this is, coming towards us. We want to create depth. We don't want to make the flowers flat. Okay, so now I'm going to work on doing the same thing like I did to these. Work on this one, maybe add a few more in the background as kind of blurry, not too detailed, make it look a little softer and maybe a little less. Let's add a little bit less of a, I don't want it to stand out too much. So a little more water and paint. And I'm going to go around and make these a little more softer. But basically, that is it for these flowers. And then once we're done adding our kind of blurry flowers, we're going to then move on to the next part. Okay, you can see I spent a little bit of time adding the flowers where I want it to be. I also played around with blues, made a little bit of blue flowers, but still it's looking really kind of rough, not as detailed. That's what we want. And I even started adding these little ones for fun. Okay, so I'll continue and show you how to add a little more detailed ones like this on some of these right here. We're going to start to add the next closest flowers to us. So we're going to overlap some of these, and then finally we're going to work on the biggest ones and then detail everything there. But this is what I got. The same colors, basically pretty much almost the same colors. We have white and then some white and medium yellow, a little less white, orange and yellow, a touch of yellow, less white, more orange, and scarlet red. And then here we have white, cerulean blue, and then ultramarine blue. That's one of the different colors we're going to play with. And then a touch of scarlet red and white, and then viridian and lamp black, straight out of the tube, and then white, scarlet red, a little bit of white, and more red here. So I'll quickly mix this and show you what I get, but remember, if your color is a little shade different, that's okay. And one final color, I decided to add another shade of green, some white, a touch of yellow, and viridian. But this is what I got so far. And here we have it. So with these colors, we're gonna start to detail closer flowers, make them a little sharper, and then we'll sketch out our bigger flowers as the first base. So I'm gonna work on this area first. Let's pick up our number 4 brush. And here, I'm gonna add a little bit of, let's add a little bit of this pink as the first layer on top, like this, randomly. And then as you go down, we're gonna actually use this blue that we mixed, a new color. Okay, I'm going to dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, clean out the paint. And we're going to add this dark green. These are going to be more sharper, as you could see, once you add this layer. It really makes your flowers, start to pop a little more. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to actually use a little bit of this. Let's use a little bit of this red. I'm going to add it on the bottom right here. This, I know it's random right now, but I cleaned out my brush real quick. And then I'm going to let's use this blue again. I'm going to actually blend it all in, because the paint is still wet, it moves nicely. And then go back to the pink, maybe blue, mix it all, why not? A little bit of everything makes it look interesting. Okay, so a little more hot pink or red. Add it right there, like this. And there's no right way to do this, okay? So this is the first layer of this flower. So while this is drying, because you could see the brush strokes and it's a little rough, while this is drying, I'm gonna add, like I made these softer, you see, but I'm making this one sharper because I added darker colors because they're closer to us. But I'm gonna add another one of those. Let's add one. Let's add one right here, this one. Let's work on this one. Similar idea. Let's start with light pink on top. Go over randomly on top because the sun, right, is hitting the top of these. So that's where you want your bright highlight to be. And as you go down, it's going to be a darker shade. So now let's use the blue, this violet or bluish color, and then as we go down, we're going to actually use this red. This time, mix it in with the blue. And then let's use this darkest green on the bottom. Okay, I'm not gonna try to bring that up too much because, and then we're gonna go over with a detail brush and make it look a little sharper and cleaner around the edges. So I'm gonna clean my brush and add a little bit of this red and blue. Create a little separation. Like this. Add a little more blue. And then back to the pink. Kind of blend those in gently. Okay, so while this dries, I'm gonna add, I want this to be a little darker in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add red. This dark color, maybe mix it with the green a little bit. Okay, and then let's add it right in here. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush, dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel, clean out most of the paint, and pick up the blue and gently blend those colors in. Okay, so now that this is dry, we can repeat the process. I'm gonna clean my brush real quick in the water jar and then tap it on the paper towel. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfectly clean. And then do the process again, because when you add, remember, the second layer, it really takes away the brush strokes and makes it look cleaner and solid. So a little bit of light pink on top. Okay, and then as I go down, I'm gonna use a little bit of red and this blue. And then go to this dark green. This blue. Now it's a lot cleaner. Now we're gonna pick up our detail brush and we're gonna really make it even more sharper and looking detailed. So because the light is hitting this side, right, we want to brighten the right side. So let's use a little bit of white with water. So dab your brush in the water, use a little bit of white, maybe some pink, but more white. Okay, with water and a little bit of paint. We're gonna go over the top just like this, you see, and create like a bright highlight. Okay, with more water, not too much paint, we're going to continue adding that highlight. So less paint now. As I go in more to the left, it's going to be a little less paint. It's going to be faded. then we're going to add this green that we mixed, light green. Dab it in the water, swirl it like this, and then we're going to add a little bit of green. So I have too much water, so I'm going to tap it on the paper towel a bit. I don't want it to be too runny. So a little more paint. And add some highlights. Here with that light green. Dab my brush lightly in the water, use a little bit of this darker green. We're going to create some little details here and on this side as well. Darker green. Lighter green. And you can add, you totally don't have to add if you don't want to add these little details. But I like to spend time making them interesting. I'm going to add this part, and I'm going to kind of go all the way down. Dab it in the water, your detail brush. Swirl it so it can run smooth. Okay, so now I'm going to use a little bit of this red and green, mix those two randomly together, and add a little bit of a darker shadow. Okay, it's a little too bright, that's okay. I'm going to fix it right now by, let's use a little bit of this light pink. I'm going to go over, try to take away that, little bit of that brightness. Go over the top a little bit. And then with the darkest green color, this one, we're going to go over. Okay, let's use the light blue. So it's a lot of back and forth. I'm just painting until I'm happy with it. I'm going to take a little bit of the sharpness of the red we just added. I don't want it to be too sharp. So a little more of that blue. Light pink. Okay, a little bit of white. Wanna go over. A little bit of this one. And then also with the detail brush, I'm gonna add a little bit of highlight. Let's go ahead and use a little bit of yellow with water. Okay, swirl your brush, and we're gonna add a little bit of highlight to this, barely pressing, because the light, we want it to stand out. Okay. All right, so something like this, and you can, play around with your flowers and the positioning and the highlights of it. Totally up to you. You can make the leaves a little bigger or open it up a little, have fun with it. So now that this is dry, the first layer, now with the second layer, we're gonna, like we did with this one, we're gonna create more of a solid look. So starting with pink, barely pressing more with water, glaze it, and then let's use this blue. Next, glaze it gently, and then finally the red. That just takes away the brush strokes. That's why it's important to layer, focus on layering. Okay, maybe a little more red. Okay, a rough sketch, a little green on the bottom. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with our detail brush and use a little bit of white and pink. Swirl it with water. Okay, with water. We're going to go over the top and make this stand out a little more. Okay. All right, something like this. And now we're going to use this red, maybe a blue, more red with water. Swirl your brush, and we're going to create kind of what we did with the other one. little darker green with the red. I'm going to make this a little sharper. There you go. And now we can use this dark green and add a little bit of a kind of what we did here. Not too much, maybe this has less. Okay, use the dark green color and continue bringing this all the way down. I dab my brush in the water, swirl, and bring this all the way down. Okay, and I'm going to clean my brush, use the yellow, maybe the green, because we don't want it to be too bright. Let's mix the light green and the yellow, why not? Two of these with water. Like we did with this one, we're going to go over gently on the edge and add the highlight, bright highlight. Okay, maybe use the green. Make this a little taller and bigger. And then go back to the dark green, blend those in with water. So there could be variety, right? And then finally, with the dark green, maybe a little red, we're gonna go over gently, like this. I want to actually add one more here, why not? So I'm going to add white. And then I want to fade it out to this blue. A little bit of red as you go down. Okay. And then let's add the red highlight, kind of what we did with these. Clean it out actually a little bit. Clean my brush and use the light pink. I know it's a lot of back and forth, but you know, while the paint is still fresh, it's easy to move paint around and blend. Once you added your second layer, right? And then you can totally add a third layer if you wanted to make it even more cleaner. And I'm just showing you a rough kind of sketch of these flowers. I will basically do the same technique. It's going to take me a little bit of time, right? So I'm not going to show you exactly every little step because this is the main part. As long as you're catching these techniques of highlights, right, from light going into the darker tones and then creating shadows and that gives depth, right? So that's what we want to do. And basically now you can make it as perfect as you want. But I'm gonna go ahead and now you can see that these are more detailed than the background flowers, right? They're more blurry. And the next ones are gonna be even more detailed, these bigger ones we're gonna go over. But basically I'm gonna work on adding a few more of these kind of flowers, same technique, one right here, couple in here, and we'll see, just maybe like 3 or 4 areas. And then I'll show you what I get and then we'll continue. All right, you could see I added a few more different colors to, you can choose which colors you want to add to them. And now let's continue sketching out the main flowers, getting the base down. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and these right here. Okay, so let's use the same brush, number 4. Let's create pink. Start with this one. Let's add a glaze of pink in here. And then as you go down, it's going to be a little more on the darker pink. Maybe add a little bit of blue. We want it to look. Let's clean our brush real quick. I want to make it a little less. Let's use this lighter blue that we have mixed. Blend it in with these colors gently. Okay. Use a little bit of this light blue mixed with pink like this. Okay, dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel. Let's use this darker red. And then this blue, maybe darker red right here. Okay, and then as we go down, it's going to go back to light pink. Dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, and then let's use this blue. And with a little bit of water and that blue, blend those colors in together. Okay, maybe use a little more blue. A little more red. And this is our first layer. So it's going to look a little rough. It's kind of looking soft, but it's still a little rough, you could see, right? So once we add another layer, doing the same technique, going over it again if you want, then it's going to make it look even more cleaner. On the bottom here, we're going to add this green, kind of like what we do with these other flowers. Okay, something like this. Let's add that lighter green. Okay, I forgot to add a little bit of pink on this side. That's okay. Very easy to add and adjust. A little bit of pink and blue. And red. A little bit of each. And there you go. right, so first sketch of our flower is done. Let's continue doing the same thing with these flowers here. So light. So maybe add a little bit of white actually. Mix it with the pink. A little bit of white. And then as you go, I'm going to add blue. Maybe lighter blue. Dab it in the water, clean it out a little bit. Okay, let's use this darker pink. Gently go over. Around your flower right here where the shadows and separations are. And a little more darker pink. And then as you go out, we want to gradually fade it out to a lighter blue. So I'm going to clean my brush and use a lighter blue color. Maybe a little bit of a darker one actually, because I want it to be a little darker than the background, so it can stand out. So I'm going to mix more red. And then light blue. Okay, let's add this orange right here in the middle, and this dark red. And then clean our brush real quick, and we're going to add this yellow on top. Randomly dab. Okay, now we're starting to see a little more detail, which is great. It's obviously not detailed yet, but that is okay, because that's how I like to work, is layering. Now that we got the base down, it'll be easy to correct. Okay, it's good enough for this one for now. Now let's move on to this one. Doing the same thing, clean my brush. Let's use the white and pink. Dab it in the water and use a little bit of the blue. And back to the pink. Blend those in, and then maybe the darker pink. Use a little bit of this blue here. We just fill in, you know, with the colors, dark and lights, and then we'll detail later. Okay. Now let's do the same thing, add that orange right in here, and then we can add the darkest red on the bottom of it, and some yellow. Okay. So that's done, and now I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna change this one to the light pink. And then obviously make it darker here. Down my brush lightly in the water, tap it on the paper towel. Let's use this blue. Clean our brush again, go back to the pink. And blend those in. Maybe a little more darker red, pink. Okay. For now, that one's good enough. And now let's continue with these. Same thing, pink. Light pink, and then let's use light blue. And then even darker blue. And finally red. Okay, it's a rough one, but that's okay. We're gonna correct it later. And finally, I'm gonna do the same thing to this one. I'm going over with light pink first. Let's add a little bit of blue on this side. More blue. And then darker blue, because it's going to be faded more, because it's in the shadow. These are more in the light. So we want to add more blue there, and then finally red. Maybe mix it with the blue. Why not? And then same thing like we did with the other flowers. Let's add a little bit of this red and maybe a little bit of green on the bottom around Okay, clean our brush and use some yellow. Add a little bit of that bright highlight. Okay, just like this. And finally, you can do the same thing, maybe with white. Go over, make it a little cleaner on this one. Use a little bit of blue. And pink. Mix those together and blend them in. Okay, we got the base down of our flowers. You can see it's looking rough. But before I continue, I'm gonna add with the dark green right here and my detail brush, I'm gonna go over these. So here, I'm gonna go and let it naturally fade out. This one's gonna fade out. Okay, dab my brush in water, use this color. Maybe a little red because of the light. And we're gonna bring this down. Something like that. Let's continue here. With water and a little bit of red and green. I'm gonna bring it down. Make this a little darker as well. All right, so now we finally have a rough outline of the main flowers, and now I'm going to work on detailing my flowers, going over again now that it's dry, doing the same thing. Okay, I'm gonna repeat the same process, and I'll show it to you right now. I'm gonna show you on one of them, and then from there I'll show you what I get, because it's pretty much repetitive, the same thing, and going back and forth. So again, we're gonna start with white and pink, and we're gonna go over and add another layer, and then slowly transition with water gently to the other color. A little bit of pink. It's a lot of back and forth. Barely, you could see I'm not adding too much paint. I dab my brush in the water so it could be damp, and tap it on the paper towel, and then repeat the process with these colors here. I'm just trying to take away the brush strokes. And as I go down, I'm going to go back to the pink. Okay. So I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to use this dark green. Add that right there. And now I can go with my detail brush and go over, and here I'm going to add a little bit of, darker highlights. So maybe use a little bit of this light pink and this, get an in-between color with water. And I'm going to make some of these a little darker so they can stand out. Maybe that's too dark, so I'm going to mix it with a light pink. And I'm going to try to blend that out. So I dab my brush in the water, use the light pink again, and I'm going to try to blend those into the lighter colors. Okay. I'm going to dab my brush in the water, use a little bit of this blue, actually a darker blue. Switch it up with color. Dab it in the water, and we're going to make this a little darker. I want my flower to stand out. Use a little bit of lighter blue to gently blend those in and create a soft transition to the pink. So maybe use a little bit of the light pink and blend it in like this, okay? And then I'm going to use a little bit of a darker pink here, and right around the edge, I'm going to make this a little dark. Okay. I'm going to use a little bit of a pink, kind of what we did here. Continue that technique. Go over gently, and it's going to fade. So use a little bit of light pink and blend those in. All right, use light pink. And then we can use a little bit more white and add a little brighter white on this side. Maybe the light is hitting that and it's super bright. Okay, so with water, and go over with the white on some of these. dab it in the water and use light pink. I'm just trying to create a little more detail to my flowers. Okay, something like this. And now with a darker pink, we're gonna kind of what we did here, I'm gonna go over the top and with water and that pink, I'm gonna try to make it cleaner here. Use blue. And with a darker green, we're gonna go over and add little tiny details here. Okay. Clean my brush, go back to the pink and add a little light highlight around this one. Too much water, that's okay. I dried it out a little bit and added less water. And now with the light green, we're gonna go over and add a little bit of, maybe some of these are facing us, right? You want to create depth like this. So maybe there's some in here. And you can use this light orange because we want to create that beautiful glow. So with water and orange, we're going to outline this one. Create a little glow, nice orange glow on both sides. It's going to fade out as it goes down. Maybe we will add a little bit of a green. maybe darker green. Just to create some variety. And basically that's how you detail your flowers. Go back and forth. Once you added your darks, you can go back and add your lighter ones. Maybe let's use yellow and orange, mix those two together and go over the top, right? Because the light is hitting the top of these. Gently pressing with water and add that light highlight. So here I'm going to brighten it up with yellow. I want this to stand out here because of the light. So with bright yellow. And fade it out. Okay, so it's a rough sketch, but basically you can spend time detailing it and adding it, as much as you want. But I'm gonna work and add the same idea where my light pink areas are. I'm gonna go over and add brighter areas, right? So for example, white and pink, and I'm gonna make a little brighter ones because of the light. Maybe it's hitting here. I'm gonna add that with water, right? And go over and add all your beautiful details like this. And then once you're done adding that, you can go ahead and use the same technique with a little bit of pink, and you can play with those two colors and some water, right? We're going to go over them and make it a little detailed, more cleaner and prettier. All right, here I noticed you could see this area dark, right? Against the dark background. I don't really like that because it blends in too much with the back, and it doesn't make my flower pop like this one, see? It makes this one pop against the lighter background. So I want to lighten actually this, and that's what you do. You gotta just keep adding and adjusting and working with your lights and darks to make sure you're happy with the positioning and the lighting of your flowers and stuff. So this blends in. So I want to show you guys how I lighten the background. It's very easy and simple. So with my number 4, I'm just going to choose, let's use this light blue, maybe a little bit of yellow, why not? And let's just mix it in the back. And it's okay if you go over I'm going to tap my brush in a paper towel so I won't have too much water. And it's okay if you go over the flower again, because we're gonna add the second layer, right? Like we did this one, and detail it better. But I just wanted to correct this section here so that the darker, when I add my darker areas, it'll like stand out better. So with my damp brush and a little bit of lighter paint, right? Let's use a little more blue and a little bit of paint. And then you can, I'm going to dab my brush in water. You could use the light pink. Okay, light pink. Let's correct this area just a bit right here. Okay. And fade it out. And then here, this goes to a little bit of a darker color. Let's go ahead and use a little bit of a maybe darker pink mixed with the lighter pink. A little bit of color there, transition. Let's use a little bit of yellow. You can see I'm randomly trying to play with color here. Go back to the red a little bit, make it a little darker right there, and blend it in a bit. And that's how you work with acrylics. Just go back and forth until you're happy with your blends. Okay, so I'm going to lighten that area again. Let's use a little bit of this yellow color and go over a little bit more. I want to brighten it a bit more. While the paint is still wet. And here, I want to add the yellow, these flowers, and kind of blend those. Maybe use a little bit of pink. Just a little bit of pink, and blend with the background a bit. Because we want these flowers to still be blurry. We don't want them to be sharp. But you could see I brightened the light area. Now when I go into adding the dark, let's say this blue, right? When I go into adding that, it's gonna be sharper. You see that right there? And that's what we want for this flower. And I'm going to use a little bit of pink and blue and add a little bit of a darker shade in here. You see now that it makes the flower pop because of that. So I just showed you this section, but you can correct, if you wanted to. Now, you don't need to do it everywhere. Like you don't need to have the whole background light. You can have some areas like this area is a little bit dark, and obviously I'm gonna add a little bit of a darker shadow in here like this. As long as it's not like blending with the background too much, right? So basically I'm gonna continue working on these flowers. And I'm going to add the darker shadows right here, and then the lighter ones because of the light hitting here. Just so you know, it's a lot of back and forth, adding pinks, blues, whatever color you would like your flowers to be. And then once you're done adding your second layer, like I showed you with a detail brush, we will go over and make things sharper and cleaner like we did with this onto this one, okay? And then I'll do that to this flower as well and a couple other ones, and then I'll show you what I get. All right, I spent some time, you can see, detailing these flowers, and I did this part right here, and I'll show you how to do this part, okay? So I'm gonna add orange, this bright orange, and lightly dab like this. Okay, and then we're going to pick up our detail brush and I mixed red with black a little bit to make a little bit of a darker color. So I'm going to take part of this and go in here and darken, create a shade around this, and like create little dots. As you go up, it's going to get a little less separated. And then we're going to add a couple of these dark details like we did to that one. We're not going to add as much. Maybe this one has a few. Like this. You know, as many as you want. Totally up to you. And then I'm going to add one more. On this side. And then with a detail brush, you can clean your brush. Again, with a detail brush, use this light yellow, swirl it with water, and go around gently and outline. Create a little highlight around. Maybe you can create a little bit of little bright details inside. And that's it. So that's how I created this. And basically, I'm going to spend time doing the same technique to these, like I did here, going back and forth with these colors, white, pink, blues, mainly white, and these blues and pinks. Okay, that's what I did here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a few more, and I'll show you on the sides here. And here we go. You could see I added some new ones. You don't have to, but it's, again, totally up to you how many flowers you want. And it's basically the same technique, right? But you just go over with the colors back and forth until you're happy with your shape of your flowers and the details. So you could see I started adding these right here, right? The next step is to add the final like few details are to add some grass. So I'm going to add some details and some grass here, and we're going to mix some color. And then after that, we're going to add, like we did to this one, right? We started doing it to this one. We're going to add the highlights because of the sun, right? We want to add some highlights and brighter kind of shadows to our grass and things like that, like we did right here a little bit. And to this one, you know, to some of these, we're going to add the grass as the final detail and then add the highlights. And that'll be like the final thing we do here. So let's mix some color and finalize this piece together. Okay, this is what I have here. White, medium yellow, and orange, and then a little less white, about the same amount of medium yellow, and more orange and scarlet red right here. And then some white, and then more medium yellow and viridian. And then just viridian, a little bit more of that, and lamb black. And here you go. I also added white, just in case if I need a lighter color. Let's take part of this green, a little bit of it, just like this. Add it right here, and then part of this orange, very small amount. Let's just mix it with the white. We just want a brighter color, but not white straight out of the tube. We want a little bit of just a shade darker than white, like this. Okay, something like this. So with these colors, we're gonna finalize the painting by adding grass and highlights. All right, let's pick up our detail brush, dab it all the way in the water. Okay, and then we're gonna start with the darkest green. We're gonna draw everything out first with a little bit of water so it can run smooth as always. And we're gonna swirl it like this, right? With water and that dark green, we're gonna start to add a bunch of little grass details. Okay, so for example, from this one, we're gonna just start adding, maybe there's one that kind of goes like this and loops around. There's no really right way of making these. Have fun with this. So with a little bit of water, we're gonna let it naturally. So I constantly, if my brush is like not really, if it's not running smooth, I dab my brush in the water again and then I swirl paint. So it's a lot of back and forth. But so you could see I'm just going right around the edges and making them as detailed as I want. I'm gonna add another one. Maybe from here, let it go up like this. So a little more paint and water. Maybe it's connecting to this, why not? I'm gonna actually create another one that's coming from here and overlapping. Right? Maybe this one's the closest to us. So basically I'm gonna spend some time adding the same technique as much as I wanted, right? It's totally up to you. You don't have to overdo it, you can skip some areas. I'm gonna spend some time adding it around here, and then I'll show you what I get. And then afterwards, I'll show you how to highlight everything. And here it is. You could see maybe I overdid it, but that's okay. I had fun with this. You can add less if you want, right? So once you're done, now we got the base down. Now we're gonna go over and add the highlights. All right here, we're gonna dab our detail brush and use the light green with water. Same technique, light green. And we're gonna start to go over some of these. The light is hitting them, so I'm gonna add it more on my right side here. So, for example, very gently I'm pressing. I'm not gonna add too much, but we wanna add a little bit of that detail, the highlight to them. And bring it all the way down like this. And just do your best to follow the lines, but if it doesn't really overlap, that's okay. It's not going to be that noticeable. Maybe we can add some bright ones right here. I'm adding on the right side of each grass, each branch. So this is going to take some time. But that's how you create highlights. Gonna go over some of these. And then as you go up, you can play with orange as well. Make this one kind of like what we did to this. We added some yellow because of the sunlight, right? We want to add some bright colors. So a little bit of mix it. If it blends in too much, mix it with the white. That's why we added this, so that we can use it just in case if we need to lighten a color. If it blends in to the background too much. There, you see it's a little lighter. That's much better. And we're gonna quickly add some bright highlights on both sides to this one. And it's gonna fade into the green because it gets more in the shaded area. So I'm not gonna add too much on the bottom, mainly that orange. And you can also play with this darker red, right? Going over a little bit so it can glow. Same thing here. Let's add that darker orange. And then lighter orange, back and forth until you're happy with your highlights. And I'm going to use a darker orange to go down on this one and fade it out. Okay, back to the green with water. I'm going to continue where we left off here, adding the light highlights. Now here, it's going to be on the left side, on top here, because the light is hitting it, right? I'm going to make this one brighter. Make it glow a little bit, stand out. And randomly go over. And fade it out. I'm constantly dabbing my brush in the water and swirling my brush real quick to pick up more paint. And there you go. Let's add a little bit of a darker orange to this one. Add a little bit of color. And then let's add the lighter orange so that it can glow. So basically I'm going to do that with the light green and the light orange. And basically the goal is to create, because of the light hitting, you want to create the light orange and yellows, the brighter colors on top, right? And then as you go down, you want to go into the greens and a little bit faded to the green colors, okay? But that's, and then you just add the highlights. For example, I'll do like this one right here, right? I want to make it a little brighter, so I'm going to go ahead and use the light orange because it's closer to the sun. We want to make it look a little bit warmer, right? And I'm going to outline and create my highlights here with a light orange and some water. And randomly, it doesn't have to be perfectly, you know, going over each branch, but somewhat, you know, as long as you get it close enough, it'll be good to go. Otherwise you would spend forever going over each branch trying to make it perfect, you know, but you don't need to do that. So real quickly, add your bright highlight. And I'm going to use a little bit of lighter color and this orange. And here, I want to make this brighter. Brighter orange. Same thing here, like we did to all our flowers. We're going to add a little bit of a brighter highlight. I'm going to add it on both sides. And slowly fade it out. So I'm going to spend some time creating my highlights to all these branches, and I'll show you what I get. But basically, this is the final few details. Here it is. I'll be done for today. You can spend as much time as you want adding all the little details, having fun with this. If you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel, check out my Patreon page. This is where you can help me keep making these videos, putting out full-length tutorials here on YouTube. And also on Patreon, you're able to get these lessons without commercials and much more. Thank you guys again. Take care and God bless.